We got to mix the mission statement with the idea that everything is relevant. Our stand-up is relevant. Living in New York is relevant because it's all how to deal with day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Is that generally it? Yeah. The littlest things in the world can like ruin your whole outlook on life just because of one day when it's really not that big of a deal. But we've got to find a way to like deal with our fucking anger, basically.
Yeah.
I'm Matt Fulcheron. I'm here with Brennan Tassif.
Hello.
Daniel called in sick today, but the spirit of Tirado is with us. He's right here.
Right
He's
here.
squeezing in right there between the wall and the table. Great commute into the city, into the madness. You know, there's people ice skating already.
Are there really?
For those that don't know, we're starting this at 11 a.m., and I saw people ice skating at 10 a.m. at Bryant Park.
Oh my God.
People are living their lives.
I thought they took that down. I thought they took that down like at the beginning of It's still up.
Somebody went rogue, broke in, put it back up.
Can you ice skate?
Yeah, I can ice skate.
yeah.
I can ice skate. There's actually footage of me ice skating on Instagram if you go back to about February 2019.
Okay.
I'm ice skating. Now,
There's documentation.
used to be a lot better at ice skating. I am hanging on for dear life in this footage.
Okay.
All right, and there's just the constant thought of going down on this ice,
Yeah.
and slamming into this ice.
It hurts.
That I'm well aware because I've skateboarded for so long.
Yeah.
And my ice skating days were in the 80s when I was a kid and pain wasn't real.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the one thing about, because I aggressive inline when I was in middle school and stuff. And falling on concrete, especially in Florida where it's hot, you forget that the cold makes it a whole different level of pain.
It's just, I think somehow it's harder.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like it feels
Somehow ice is harder than concrete. And the difference has got to be so small.
Yeah.
But
and then the
there's
cold on
something to
top of it, you're like,
yeah.
It's a good motivator not to fall though.
The upside is, well, yeah, but that makes you fall. When you go, I'm not going to fall, that means you're going to fall. Or try
Story
not
of
to
my
fall.
life.
Yeah. But if you're like, I'm going to fall, you got to be okay with
But
falling.
it's okay, yeah.
But God
That
damn
sums
it.
up our whole podcast.
But
You got to be okay with falling.
but don't get on the ice unless you got health insurance.
Yeah.
That's my rule for everybody. Because my hands are out like this.
Yeah.
That's what's whack about it. That's what's terrible about it.
And then if you slip, it's
Yeah, there's my wrist.
yep.
But you got to be like all, you got to get some
Fluid. You
flow
gotta-
going.
yeah.
You can't skate with that fear.
I used to date a figure skater. This is years ago.
Me too, actually. But tell your story.
Well, and I remember one time I came to the rink after her practice, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to? We still have some ice time left. Do you want to
Yeah.
get on the ice?"
Right.
And I was like, "Yeah," because I've skated my whole life, and I was like, "How much harder could it be?"
Yeah.
It's not completely different, but it's harder. It's definitely a lot harder.
It's hard. It's
You get
scary.
used to it after like one or two laps. I was feeling it.
Yeah.
I was Charlie
see-
Conway from Mighty Ducks, man.
I kept catching grooves.
Yeah.
And then
you're-
also you have to dodge all these children who are not even trying to skate. They're just trying to play with their fucking Matchbox cars or whatever.
where
on the
was this
ice.
that in 2019?
This
where
was at a
here?
ski resort in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
And they had the ice skating.
So it's just, that's the thing is I've always thought about seeing if I could still ice skate here in New York because they
Yeah.
have a bunch of
Right.
different places during the wintertime.
Yeah.
It's just so crowded.
Don't bother.
It's like,
If only there was an off season.
yeah. Well, if only they kept the ice around.
If only it wasn't in New York City. Everything you do here is so difficult. Like, I don't know what it's like at the gym, but at the pool, I got to pack into a locker room, like fight for locker space.
That's the one
I
good thing
gotta-
about working at night is I go to the gym in the middle of the day
Right. So
when no one's there.
So this is what sucks about swimming. You pay for a membership and the pool's only open about 6 to 8 hours total.
Okay.
And it's divided up into morning sessions,
oh.
afternoon sessions, and evening sessions.
Everyone has
So everyone
to-
has to go at the same time.
Yeah.
Your only move is to get there before it starts and get maybe 10 minutes of,
Actual,
legitimate,
yeah.
worthwhile swimming.
Yeah,
After that, you're just in traffic.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go to the gym like on days where I'm off from the restaurant, I'll be like, all right, well, I want to sleep in.
Yeah.
Because I'm normally a morning routine guy.
Right,
So I'll be like, I'm going to sleep in a little bit. I'll have my, shake in the morning, and then I'll just kind of ride out the day. And then I'll go to the gym in the evening. And every time I do, I always go, why the fuck am I here in the evening when everybody's here? Because normally, like, I'll try to superset, but if I have good gym etiquette. So if the gym is crowded, I won't do that. That's where you take up like 2 or 3 machines at a time.
Right.
But if the gym's crowded, I know that's not polite.
Sure.
That's not the right thing to do. So I won't do that. But then my workout then takes, because I'm normally there for about an hour 45, 2 hours.
Yeah.
My workout then takes like 3.5 hours because I can only do one station at a time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times by like 45 minutes to an hour into it, I'm like, forget it. Like, I'll go do cardio for an hour and then go home.
And that's sad that, would you say like 45 to an hour?
Yeah.
Isn't your total workout.
Me,
it's like, because you already worked what most people, like I only do 20 to 30. A day, but you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
you know what you're doing, and
well,
that's what
why
it
it's
requires.
frustrating because with the way I like to lift, it's frustrating because it's like I can't. Like the gym for me is a 4-hour adventure.
Yeah.
Like today, I had to be up at 5:30 because my day is very busy.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to do the gym at all.
Right.
And so I was like, looks like I'm getting up at 5:30 because I did my sports show before this at 9:30. So I was like. I got to be up at 5:30, and so I'm at the gym by 6. That gives me until 8:30 to work out. Yeah, and then get home, shower, jump on the other podcast.
The hardest working man in podcasting.
It's dumb though. Like I don't know if this doesn't qualify for was I dick, so I'll say it now. But like my boss the other day called me and she's like, "Hey, do you want the night off?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she just kind of throwaway was like, "Huh, you're so lazy," because I take all the cuts. Like whenever they don't want me there, I'm like, "All right, cool." And I just started laughing because I was like, oh, you think I'm lazy because I don't like being at the restaurant. I was like, if you saw my schedule like on my day off, like today, it's like, oh, no, it doesn't stop.
Yeah. That's great, though. It's like, hey, you want a piece of cake? Yeah. You're so fat.
Piece of garbage. Yeah, dude.
Smack. What the fuck is that? She offered it to you.
I know.
I've been getting up early because I'm just navigating this. Like, so I had 17 days of not drinking.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And sometimes, this is my theory. I'm probably wrong because I didn't look it up. But my theory is I don't need as much sleep right now because I get such good sleep. My body's like, all right, you're done.
Go. My body wakes up naturally after about 4 hours.
Okay. So I've been waking up a couple of times, not every morning.
Yeah.
At like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. And I just get up because it sounds like you're like me. It's like there's something great about being up before everybody.
I love it.
Especially in the city.
Today, going to the gym, there was like nobody out.
Yeah.
The sun wasn't up yet.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is the problem that I have is I wake up, my body naturally after like 4 to 5 hours of sleep will just wake up. And the problem that I run into, and I don't know if this happens to you, but if I'm like, hey, I don't have to be up for another hour, I'm going to go back to bed. My body will fall into that 4 to 5 hour cycle again. So like, say I get up at 4 and I'm like, I don't have to be up till 7.
Yeah.
I'll go back to sleep. But then my alarm goes off at 7 and my body's like, no, we still have 2 more hours. We're sleeping.
Right.
We locked back into it.
Yeah.
And I can't even open my eyes at that point.
That's what's so difficult about having a different schedule every day.
Yeah.
You know, but I got up early and I did some writing. I was doing the morning I woke up at 5 a.m. I was like, holy shit.
Let's go.
I've got like 4 hours to myself here.
Yeah.
Because that was the weekend. On the weekends, my lady and I got to entertain her.
Yeah.
But if I get I sneak in some me time. What?
Where are we going? What are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing?
What's for dinner?
Yeah. So I get some me time in there. I like to work every day. Like I like to do some writing every day. Because you're never done.
Power of art.
Then I realized, shit, I can make the morning. It's hard to swim on the weekends because there's only a morning shift.
Okay.
Another shitty thing about swimming.
Incredibly packed.
That's the thing. I thought it would be fine because it's like 8 a.m. on a holiday weekend, and it was more crowded than ever. And I went to the small pool. I got 2 pools because that's how hard it is to get in the pool. I got 2 pools going. One's only $150 a year.
Oh, that's not
so
bad.
it's not that bad. Yeah. And one's just $57 a month, so it's not that bad. And I get in there, and it's a small pool, and I swear to God, like I'm getting to the point where I have to swim like bumping into the wall, like bumping, bouncing off the wall. Like this one lady won't get in. There's another thing about swimming, and I'm sure there's an equivalent with lifting. Everybody wants to be in the fast lane.
Yeah.
But nobody's fast.
Yeah.
Like it's this ego thing. You look at the medium lane, most of the people are faster in the medium lane than in the fast lane. In the fast lane, there's really slow people and really fast people. And I hate to say it, but I'm usually one of the fast people because I used to spend 2 hours a day for maybe a decade of swimming. Like 2 hours a day, year round, so I can just swim fast. But
it's the same thing at the gym.
there's no ego in it. Sometimes I will get in the fucking medium lane just because there's less people in there. But these fuckers will pack into the fast lane. What is that?
I don't know, because the same thing happens at the gym where there's only a select number of squat racks, like actual squat racks. And people will get into the racks and do like curls.
Yeah.
Because they just want to be in the rack.
Yeah.
Now, there's a ton of lifts you can do from within the rack. It's not just squats. But I don't know, again, like you're saying, I don't know if it's an ego thing or what it is, but like if I'm going to squat, like I do hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm like, hey man, like you're curling or you're doing shrugs or you're doing something that you can do anywhere else in the gym. But I never say anything because I've been lifting for so long that it's like, well, I can work the same muscles at a different spot with different weights. I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating because they'll be like, meh, and I'm like, get out of the rack.
While I'm thinking about it, I'm coming up with a little bit of a solution or a little bit of an answer. And I'm realizing that I don't see a lot of slow women in the fast lane.
That's true.
I think there's a lot of dudes going around right now calling themselves alpha males and wanting to be like the best at everything, but you're not. You're the best at one thing in your life.
Yeah.
And you're not even the best at that.
That's what I was going to say. You're not even the top dog.
You're
there.
just the best out of your friends at this.
Yep. Did you ever think about that? That sometimes tickles the back of my brain where I'm like, I wonder if there's anything in life that if I tried it, I could be the best in the world at it.
I'd say no.
Yeah.
I hate to think that way on a positive podcast. There's always a possibility. But the best in the world?
Because there's so many things we haven't tried.
And for how long are you going to be the best in the world?
That's another thing too. But like sometimes I'll watch movies because I work in the restaurant industry and I have for 20 years. And sometimes I'll watch like The Bear on FX or something.
Yeah.
I'll watch that and I'll be like, I wonder if I took a different path and just like devoted myself to the kitchen, if I could be like a Michelin starred chef.
I had the opposite effect.
Oh, really?
It was like, man, I respect these people so much. I could never do this.
Yeah.
It's just so hectic and hot and physically damaging.
Yeah.
You step foot in the kitchen.
Yeah, well, I
so
like
you know about the slippery floor and the chatter and the language.
Love the chaos. Yeah, I love the chaos, and that's something actually that it's great to bring up on this show. That's something I don't know if we've talked about it before, but I've had to get better at is growing up playing sports my whole life and then working in restaurants. My dad is a very, Midwestern football guy, old school kind of guy. So I grew up in an environment where you yell and that's how you express yourself. And then it's over. Coaches would scream at you, "Hey, you dumb piece of shit, like you missed your block." And then and then you just don't do it again because you don't want to get yelled at.
Yeah.
And now that I'm in my mid 30s and like every restaurant probably for the last 10 years that I've worked in, I've been asked to be a trainer and to like help because I take a lot of pride in it and I'm pretty good at it. But my problem is, and people say this to me all the time, it's not what you said that's wrong, but it's how you said it.
Right.
Because I grew up in that environment where it's like, you fucking idiot, like what are you doing? And then they just don't do it again. And I learned from my last relationship with Savannah that it's like, no, you can't talk to people like that. Because I come from a family where if you have a problem with someone, you just yell at each other. And then literally 30 seconds later, we're fine.
Right.
But that's not how the world works anymore.
No, I'm did something in my youth that was so funny because I didn't understand what was going on. The swim coach like bitched us out as a group. You know the group bitch out?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like you're not working hard enough.
Everybody here, take a knee. Everybody come and take a knee.
And this is the first time I ever heard this, and I hated it. I hated the bitch out.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm maybe like 8 years old, 9 years old. And then the coach goes, and if anyone has a problem with it, say something now. And I was like, he's like, you got a problem? What's your problem? And I'm like, and then I was like, well, I don't know. I didn't know how to express myself exactly. I was like, I don't know. I just don't like getting yelled at.
You're screaming at us.
But dude, you're talking to an 8-year-old. I don't know if anybody has a problem. Say something now concept. I don't know this shit. I'm like responding to you.
Yeah, you asked a question.
Yeah.
I've seen players walk out of meetings and stuff when coaches do that ultimatum thing. If you don't fucking like it, you can leave. I've seen dudes like get up.
Right.
And sometimes the best part is, especially when you're older, like in high school, because it never happened in college, but definitely in high school, where like sometimes the best player or one of the best players would get up and be like, I'm not taking this. And we're like, wait.
He didn't mean it. He didn't mean it.
Coach, come on, relax.
Coach, you got to go.
Yeah.
We need Jeff.
Coach, get out of here.
We'll fucking coach.
Come on, Jeremy. He didn't
coach
mean
ourselves.
it. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, that idea of like, and I don't like that I do it.
Right.
And I know we've talked about it, and I've, especially with Daniel, because he's very, peaceful.
Yeah.
And which is interesting, because he says he's like, oh no, I can like get angry too, but I still haven't seen.
He's like,
it
I had
remains.
to ask someone, do you mind yesterday?
But like, I know I've talked about it before, but I don't like when that happens. Like when I see red and I snap, like I hate that happens.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a learned behavior, and it's difficult when it's something you've grown up with your entire life to just be like, oh, I can't do this anymore.
It's a learned behavior, and it's actually very expressive. And it's kind of a pickle, because it's not great to hold it in either.
That's the thing.
And honestly, when you do learn to communicate and calmly tell somebody what's wrong, I don't know that that's physically that satisfying.
It's not.
And
I can tell you it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
And you honestly doesn't get you necessarily the results you want.
Yeah.
It's just in a relationship, whether it's work, romantic, whatever, like you gotta, or customer service, there's like the rules.
Yeah.
And as soon as like you start yelling, you get like there's a flag thrown.
Yeah,
and
I don't
then,
have to
like,
take
it
this.
doesn't matter what your opinion is. It doesn't matter what you're trying to say. It's like foul.
Yeah.
It's like
That's it.
penalty.
Plays over, yeah.
4th down, motherfucker. You
Yeah.
know, like.
It's also, it's one of those things too where I've gone the other way. And it's to your point though, the results just aren't the same.
Right.
Like if I calmly say to someone at work, like, hey man, like we have a bartender and he's very pretty, which is why he gets away with a lot of this stuff. But he's a very good bartender. He's just, when we get really busy, he like takes, because he wants the drinks to be perfect.
Right.
And he takes so
He's
much
an
time.
artist.
Yeah. I'm an artist. But like
thing
when we're
is,
busy, I'm like, dude, I can't. Like my appetizers are at the table.
Yeah,
like they still
yeah.
don't have their fucking
Right.
beer and their wine. Like what are we doing?
Right.
And I have calmly said to him, like, hey man, like could you please not leave the bar like when you're the only bartender? Like
Right.
if you need something, just tell me and I'd be
Yeah.
more than happy to get it.
Yeah.
Still does it.
Uh-huh.
And then when I go like, dude, you can't leave the fucking bar. All of a sudden he stays.
Right.
So it's like, obviously I keep doing this because it works.
I think it's a case by case basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that works on him.
Because I don't think he's all
Sure.
there. Yeah.
Right. He needs a little volume.
Yeah. He's a little.
Now, with my wife, there's no way I can raise my voice or even look agitated. There's then a response. There's then an argument, and goodbye 4 hours.
Yeah.
In a 2-bedroom apartment of like not looking at each other and like scraping past each other. So I've learned I've got to like really figure out how to say it, take a deep breath,
Yeah.
put some bass in my voice, and just say it. And it usually works out fine.
Yeah.
But if like the way she responds, basically like the way some members of her family have conditioned each other, is that like once it's fighting time, it's fighting time.
Gloves are off.
And then it's like, then I'm stuck in a fight. When I don't want to fight. I just want to say the one thing.
Yeah.
I just want to say the one sentence. I don't want to have the debate. I don't want to have the legal argument.
Yeah, this is
I don't
not-
want to have to prove. I don't want examples of anything. I just want to like, listen, I'd rather not say how I feel at all. That's
Yeah.
the way I was brought up. But I know it's my responsibility to say something. It's so strange. It's such a thin line you have to walk
I was just
to
thinking that,
communicate without it going off the rails. And the truth is, it's okay if it goes off the rails, but you shouldn't start off the rails.
Well, and
I don't
I've
think.
had it happen to me before where I've almost taken it because I was raised in an environment where we yell, and it was a loving environment. It's just that's how we communicate.
Yeah.
Like I have a bit about it when you like people see couples arguing and they're like, "Oh, that's an abusive relationship." And in my head, I'm like, "That's my main mode of communication." Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But that's interesting because I've had it before where at work I've been like, "Hey man, can you like get out of the way?" Because like sometimes the servers, if they're not busy, will just stand like at service bar. And I'll be like, "Hey, like I'm working, man. Like move." And I remember, I'll never forget, I had a server, after I did that one time, take me aside, and we're like getting slammed, like it's busy. And he goes, "Brennan, can I talk to you?"
Right.
And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And like we went into the kitchen, like into the back.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Hey man, we're all busy right now.
Yeah.
I don't appreciate you talking to me like
Right.
that. You need to take the tone out of your voice." And in my head, he was calm, he was collected, did what everyone says you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, "I'm gonna put you through a fucking wall."
Right.
Like, are you kidding me?
Right.
And I think I would have responded much differently if I was like, "Hey man, get out of the way." And he was like, "Dude, like fuck off."
Right,
Like, I would have been
right.
fine.
Yeah.
But the fact that he like took the time, it almost felt more personal, like more of an attack.
Right.
And so that's the thing is, like you said, it's a thin line where it's like, how am I supposed? And I've also had it too where I've tried to say things calmly to people.
Yeah.
And then I'll get called in the office and be like, that can be seen as like you're harassed. Like I remember I lived in an apartment complex in South Florida. And the woman below us was very sick. And she was taking all this medication. And she would hear things. So she would constantly call the sheriffs on us saying we were having parties.
Right.
And the sheriffs would show up and we'd walk them. Not to say we didn't have, like every once in a while we were having a party.
Right.
But for the most part, we weren't.
Right.
And I remember I went to my neighbors and knocked on all, like the 3 neighbors near us. I knocked on all their doors and I calmly was like, "Hey, I just wanted to know if you guys were also getting these calls like from the front desk.
Right.
And like, this is really weird, right?"
Yeah.
And everyone to my face was like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's straight. Like we've heard about it too. This is bizarre."
Yeah.
I got an email the next day from my property manager saying I was harassing my neighbors.
Oh
about
my
it.
God.
And I was like, I thought that's what we were supposed to do, was like calmly interact.
Sure.
So it's like I don't know. I don't know what's what.
That is one of the toughest relationships to handle is the apartment neighbor.
Yeah.
You know, because you live together, but you're not invested in each other
Exactly.
at all.
But you're in the same space.
Yeah. I lived in it was only me and my girlfriend, this is 10, 12, 13 years ago, me and my girlfriend on the bottom floor and a woman and her kid on the top floor.
Yeah.
So it's just 2 people in this building.
Yeah.
Or 2 different groups of people in this building. And the fucking kid, and yes, I do have to curse. He's like a 2-year-old, 3-year-old kid. And this is spoken like someone that doesn't have children. He's like every morning at like 6 in the morning, he's jumping off the bed. He's running around.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's going nuts. And then the woman has to, you know, she goes to work at like 7 a.m. and had to slam the door.
Yeah.
To close, just slam. So every morning you're waking up at 7, no matter what you're dreaming about.
Yeah.
And
no matter where you were the night before. You're getting up.
At first it goes smoothly. I just kind of wrote a note, like letting them know. And then the next thing you know, it's once you do that, you feel like you have to say something again.
Yeah, because you've opened the door now.
Yeah, and now you feel like a sucker or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it just only escalated into the point where if she thought we were being too loud, she would stomp on the fucking ground.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, and then like the landlord got involved. But of course, people with kids always win.
Oh, yeah, always.
You know, the landlord said to me, she goes, "Well, we can't tell people how to raise their kids." And I'm like, oh my God, well, you can look for a new fucking tenant.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's for sure.
That is the one thing I am kind of nervous about because I'm moving into the new place next week and it's with random roommates.
Yeah.
And I've lived with random roommates before in college. One of them ended up being like my best friend.
Yeah.
And then I've lived with other random roommates where it didn't go so well because of what we're talking about, where like I'd get drunk and pass out on the couch and think I'm Mr. Perfect roommate.
Right.
And then he would leave a pan in the sink and I'd be like, "Dude, like what's with the pan?" And he goes, "Are you kidding me? Like every time I come downstairs, you're passed out with a bottle of rum and like shot glasses and booze spilt everywhere.
Yeah.
You want to talk to me about a pan?"
Yeah. Well, listen, I'll take your side on this. I prefer an unconscious roommate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll never forget, it was that same apartment and they had called us to be like, "Hey, we're doing the yearly inspection." So I feel like I'm a natural leader because of my anxiety. I naturally am like, "Hey, we have to get this done now."
Yeah.
And that's just my anxiety kind of playing into effect. And so I remember I was like, "Hey guys, we should split up the common areas to like give them a thorough deep cleaning. So when they come to do the inspection, they're like, wow, these college kids are actually really responsible."
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my roommate at the time. There was 2 of them, and one of them was like, "Yeah, that's a great idea," and the other one like kind of rolled his eyes. And I was like, "What's up, man?" And he goes, "You're not my mom. Like, don't tell me to clean." And like, it turned into and then we got into a huge argument.
Awesome.
Then I started like throwing pans, and I was like,
Yeah.
"These are all yours,
Right.
everywhere in the kitchen."
Yeah.
And so it's just weird because like people, like you said, it's case by case. Like
Right.
some people take it as like, "Yeah, you're absolutely right. We should do that." And other
Yeah.
people are like, "Fuck, like don't tell me what to do."
Right.
And it's like so. And now I'm worried because I have random roommates, but I'm like, I'm in my 30s now.
Yeah.
And so are they. Like, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, and you also just got to go in like just like ready to let go.
Yeah, that's true
And like
too.
ready to
I'm already on board 100% with like, it's just going to be me in my room. Like, I don't plan on sharing the common areas
Yeah.
or cooking in the kitchen or any of that.
I think New York City, like we're saying with the pool and the gym and
Yeah.
everything, it requires adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
It requires just patience
Letting go.
and chalking it up. And you know about this one. I think it falls into the category of things you can't control.
yeah.
Right? You can't control a person. That's the mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And dudes will get around and be like, you know, try to like control like their partners.
Yeah. That's one of my biggest problems is I'm
And-
controlling.
And it just, you can't do it.
I know.
So you have to let go of it.
Well, and that's one thing that happened with my other podcast.
I want to say something real quick.
Yeah.
It can feel like your responsibility to make sure you're treated properly.
Yeah.
But there's a whole nother person going on over there.
Yeah.
You know, and they're looking at things differently than you are.
Well, and that's the thing is that's always been one of my biggest issues. And I'll never forget, I was in college and I was dating one of the swimmers, and her dad was a pilot. And he came into town and we went out to dinner. And I always thought my anxiety stemmed from like childhood stuff and all this kind of stuff. And we were out to dinner and she turns and jokingly goes, "Oh yeah, Brennan hates to fly." To her dad, who's a pilot. And I'm like, well, this isn't an awesome first impression. But
This guy's too scared to do what you do every day.
but then he turned and he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, you're a control freak."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, huh? Like, because it never clicked in my head.
Sure.
And he goes, yeah, people who don't like to fly are control freaks.
Right.
Because you're out. That's the one place where you're stuck in the tube, but you are completely out of control.
Absolutely.
He goes, when you drive, who drives? And I go, I
Yeah.
drive. And he goes, so whenever you go on trips, you drive. And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, whenever you pack, who does the pack? I go, I do. And he goes, yeah, you're a control. And that it took me till like 22, 21 years old before
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's where all the anxiety stems from.
Sure.
Is trying to control everything all the time.
Yeah.
Which is what kept me drunk for so long.
Yeah.
Because I was like, everything's going to shit. I'm just going to get hammered.
Right. And how does that fit into control? Because I feel like I've done the same thing, but I don't see how that fits into control.
So for me, what happens is if my anxiety ramps up when I'm out of my control goes unchecked. So like now, because I've learned so much and I pray every day and I do everything I'm supposed to do to stay sober, I can see it coming and I can like temper
Right.
it down.
Yeah.
But in the past, what would happen is control leads to expectations. So if I'm in control of this situation, I know what to expect. And then if what I expect doesn't happen, that means everything was for naught. And it pushes me into this like, well, then nothing matters and I'll just
Sure.
get hammered.
Yeah.
And it would be anything from like getting a bad schedule and being like, I should just write this schedule. Like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
All the way up to like, somebody dying. And it's like, if they would have just hung out with me, they wouldn't have gone to that party and overdosed. If they would have just been like, it all stems back, which is an incredibly, thinking that I can control everything is one of the most self-centered things about my personality.
Right. But it can get embedded into your head when you're a kid that
Yeah.
like you're in full control of your life. Like all you have to do is like work hard. This whole American dream
Yeah,
thing.
it's
like it's all, and like really successful people would be like, if you're not rich, it's your fault.
Yeah, you did
didn't
it
work
wrong.
hard
Yeah.
enough. You weren't smart enough. Like all this stuff, and it really does make you feel like. And then even I think growing up religious, like the idea that you can pray for things and
Yeah.
that can help control.
Yeah,
Whereas
but-
I think that's like really missed in religions. It's really not about like praying for the perfect life.
Yeah.
It's about like having values and you're going to suffer for them. I always think about Jesus on the cross. When I go, does that guy look like he got what he wanted? Did it look like he prayed that shit away? Because I can't think of a worse way to die.
Yeah, he suffocated.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring that up, and that's a great point because in the way I got sober, when I finally got sober, was through AA. And in AA, a higher power, it doesn't have to be God, but a higher power is very important.
Yeah.
And what that does, and what it has done for me, is it gives up the complete idea of control. So now I pray every morning and I pray at night. That's just something I was told by my sponsor to do, was to get on your knees and thank something else, anything else.
Right.
And the cool thing about it is when I do that, it's a daily reminder of like, oh yeah, like I have nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah.
So I always say the same thing is just continue to let whatever's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I know it's out of my control.
Right.
And that has been, obviously I've made more strides in my career, comedy, everything in the last 5 years than I had in the previous 7.
Yeah.
Because of that, like, oh, it's not up to me. Like every show doesn't have to be perfect. Like everything doesn't, like my podcast has gone from just audio to then it was visual, then I did clips, and now it's what it is, which has given me the experience to when we started doing this one where I was like, okay, you and I have done it enough to where we know what we got to do.
Right.
And that's all because of like all these other things. And so that's been a huge benefit, is being like, oh yeah, Joe List has a great line in his movie 4th of July where it's like, everything's going to be okay. And if it's not, that's okay too. That to me is like sobriety in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's something like I thought of when I was younger, honestly, and then kind of lost.
Yeah.
And I've had to come back to, and it's very fleeting. Like I can't always keep that mentality.
Yeah, and it's it's hard.
But I think that's a shame. That I feel like that's what religion is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Buddhism, but even Christianity is.
I think if you do it,
it's like
right.
The idea that like you're always forgiven.
Yeah.
That's great because it's like you can fuck up because you're gonna fuck up.
Yeah.
So now you're forgiven, but just the idea of put your trust in the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Those are the most brilliant lines in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Of Christianity, because it's like, all right, it's out of your control, but you got to try your best.
Well,
and we go miserable trying to control things.
That's the other thing too, and you just said it perfectly and very succinctly, but you still have to try your best.
Right.
That's the other thing that a lot of people miss.
That's what like all the rules are for.
Yeah.
But that's the second important. It's like, okay, here's the main ideas, and then here's how to succeed a little bit.
Well, and that's the whole thing is, and I know you and I talked about it on my show. I think the first or second time you came on was this idea of like you in LA were trying to do like other things, like, oh, maybe I should do this, or maybe I should,
right.
And you know, you had management telling you should try this and do this.
Yeah.
And then I remember, and I'll never forget it, you said, when I was finally kind of like, maybe I just don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And you started getting on stage, like just doing what you wanted to do.
Right.
And then the special comes and the half hour and all this.
Right.
And that's what I try to tell people, especially younger comics who are like, I want to start a podcast or I want to do this. It's like, do it to the utmost best of your ability.
Right.
And if nothing comes out of it, at least you can still look back on it and be like, well, I gave it everything I had.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing is when people just like go to open mics all the time, or they just do the hang all the time, and they're like, I'm not getting anything. And it's like, well, you're not working. You're not.
Yeah.
Vince Lombardi said it best. Like, there is no luck. It's preparation and timing.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it is.
Yeah. No, I did a show on Sunday night, and it was at like a pretty major club, or it was on Monday night, and like most of the comics didn't really try.
Yeah.
To even do jokes. They just like wanted to talk to the audience, and like the audience had nothing.
Yeah.
And it was just a big nothing. And then I went up there with like a
set list and jokes.
I was like, I only had 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So what am I gonna do? Like waste like 3 or like up front?
I don't understand.
I just went like, whoom, dude, just like, boom. This is the fucking show, Yeah. And I got all these laughs. And then afterwards, my friend was like, do you do any crowd work at all? I'm like, not if I can help it. I'm like, I find the crowd like incredibly uninteresting. I'm like, I've prepared some shit. I've worked hard on it. Like, I'm just going to turn it over to them. Do you know what I mean? But my point is, I was like, I'm doing my best on this, which I've been guilty of half-assing it and like experimenting before. But fuck, if everybody on the lineup's experimenting, what
Then
is that?
yeah.
Like, think about the audience a little bit. And I did it sober too, by the way, Brennan, which is new for me.
How was
And
that? We talked about that before, relearning how to do things sober.
So on Friday I did a show where I was sober, and it was really like I was really thrown off.
Yeah.
Big time. Because first of all, it was one of these shows where there's no stage. And it's just like kind of like everything's set up against me. Like I really don't like doing this show, but I do it to stay sharp.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do it to get quote unquote stage time. There's no stage. And
mic time.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I did something. I said to myself beforehand, I wrote all these new jokes I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, as far as the old jokes, I'll get in with some old jokes, but I'm going to skip this one, I said in my head. And it like threw me off big time. And then I couldn't remember my jokes.
Yep.
And then I was like, looking people in the eye, and I was still getting laughs because I was admitting, I was like, I am fucking out of it right now. You know, like I'm off.
Yeah.
But I was being funny, but I was so sloppy that I didn't feel great about it. But I also learned to be like, well, you're learning something right now. You're learning something you should have learned a long time ago. And you've always known you could do because you've done it before. I've done it before.
Yeah.
I said, that's okay, you know? Nobody saw it. I was able to do that.
Yeah.
That's an advancement in my mental health.
Absolutely.
Because I used to be like, I suck now.
Yep.
You know the expression, you're only as good as your latest set?
Yep.
Like, I took that to heart. That's really for what other people might think about you. And that's also not true. But I'd be like, I suck now.
Well, and
I suck now.
That's something I grew up with because playing sports. It's
Yeah.
what have you done for me lately?
Mm-hmm.
You can't. It's all about what's going on right now. There are some
Yeah.
weeks where they were like, someone got hurt and they're like, Brennan, you're starting. And then I'd have a good game and they go, Brennan, you're going to start next week too.
Yeah.
And then the third week I have a bad game and they go, Brennan, you're out. And it's like,
Yeah.
what? But what
Right.
about all that rapport we built
Right.
for the last 2 weeks? And they're like,
Right.
it doesn't matter. And that is something that it's still hard for me to get over. But that is, you're absolutely right. Where it's like, this is a learning experience.
Right. And so then, but then I thought about it even more, and I was like, well, it was still evident that the booze didn't help me that much.
Yeah.
Because I only have one or two anyway, because anything more than that I know is detrimental.
Yeah.
So, but I go, but what else did you do differently? Oh, you know what else I did differently? I didn't go over my set out loud, which has become my new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so on Sunday night, and I was exhausted too because I got up at 5 a.m. and I got the spot last minute. And it's at 8 and there's like 20 comics on the fucking thing.
So you're not
but
going
you
on
gotta,
till like 10.
But
Yeah.
like I'm so hard up for stage time right now. I'm like, I gotta take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I cannot turn down an opportunity right now. This is a comic strip live. This is like a real club with like
Yeah.
a real fucking stage.
Oh, yeah.
And a real paying audience. I went over my set like 3 times. And then when I got there, I got nervous, but I get nervous when I drink too.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to like throw that out. Like alcohol doesn't actually get rid of my nerves.
At
It
all.
just, maybe I feel like sometimes it makes me not freak out or whatever. But if you're aware that you might freak out and you just like breathe and relax, like it'd be foolish to say I already got it down. But then again, I do think I already got it down.
Yeah.
I'll be foolish just because I have so much muscle memory.
That's what I was just about to say,
And
the same exact thing.
I actually, it seemed more like I felt like I took my time more,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt more confident in a way, and I wasn't like rushing, or I felt I didn't. I feel like you jump to conclusions when you drink.
Yeah.
Like, oh, these people don't like me, and you just jump to the conclusion, and now you're saying things that are only gonna fuck you up.
Torpedoing stuff.
Yeah. So this was great. It also had a lot to do with the fact that I was like angry at my peers for wasting time, and the show should be up and running by the time I got on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
That's-
Everybody got up there, fucked around, gave the audience no confidence in the show.
Yep.
And I just was like,
Well, that's my biggest pet peeve too. Is like you said, it's a paying audience, and I'll send you the clip once we get done here. But you know, everyone's posting, and it's mainly crowd work is what people post
Yes.
so they don't burn material.
right.
And so I saw very funny comic, you know him, Kyle Kinane.
Yeah.
He like put up a reel, and literally the reel is him going, I guess I'm supposed to do crowd work now because that's what everybody wants to see on social media.
Yeah.
but I think that's ridiculous.
Right.
You guys paid money to come see me.
Yeah.
So he goes, how about this? And he turns to one of the audience members and he goes, hey, sir, ask me what I do. And I was like, that's genius. Because it's like what you're saying. It's like, you are not, you paid money to see me.
Right,
like, why am I going to?
Imagine going to see like the Rolling Stones and they're like, hey, you sing a song now. Why don't you sing a song about that you wrote?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I understand a lot of people find it funny and you should get the audience involved. And it took me moving to New York before I really understood how important that was.
Yeah.
Because you want the audience to be on your side. But again, I think with this idea of we have to post, and I'm guilty of it too because I've been posting a lot more now, and I've seen a significant increase in traffic and all that kind of stuff. So it does work, obviously. That's why people do it. But at the same time, it conditions people to think that it's an interactive show.
Right.
And it conditions comics to be like, well, I'm recording this set. Let me get a couple of crowd work zingers in there so that I can post. And it's like, why don't you do the stuff you've been working on, man?
Right.
Like, come on.
And to be honest, like good crowd work is actually pre-written.
It's written
anyway.
jokes. Yeah.
So you still are burning material.
Yeah, and there are definitely some comics that I've seen where the first time I saw them, I was like, oh my God, he thought of that in the moment. That was genius. And by the third time I saw them, I could do their whole set.
I'm thinking of one guy's made a very mediocre career out of it.
Yep. I think we're thinking of the same person. But
I will also say, just in case my friend is paranoid, Ian Bagg, you're the best.
Yes.
You're the best, Ian Bagg. Like, there's some people that can just do it, and it's really fucking entertaining.
Yeah.
And yes, there's also a joke that goes with it. You know, and
yeah, and I don't want to. I'm not knocking it. It's one of those things where, and we've talked about jealousy before and how negative that can be.
Right.
I'm bad at it.
Right.
So when I see it, I'm like, just write a joke.
But we're talking about one guy who's really cocky about how funny he is.
Yeah.
And he does phony crowd work.
Yeah.
And he's been doing the same shit for years.
At one point, when I had first moved here, I thought, because you can, even as someone who's been doing comedy since 2009, I can still fall into the trap of like, oh, we're playing a game.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, like the third or fourth time I saw him, he was doing it, and I finished the line for him because I was like, oh yeah, because he always called me out on a specific one because I looked the part.
Yeah.
And so I finished the line for him, and he goes, oh, you've heard this before. And I was all excited because I was like, yeah. Like, doesn't that show how loyal I am? Like, I always come to see you. And it was awkward. Because it's like the rest of the audience doesn't know that. And that's something I forget, too, is being in the world of, like, doing bar shows and open mics. You forget, like, when you're past at a club, like, it's a different, like, it's the same club, same green room, same venue, but it's a different audience, like, every time.
Yeah.
So,
but also, is it?
That's,
because
you can get conditioned.
There's people like you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who are like comedy fans who find the club they like, and then they go back,
especially when you live there. Yeah.
The same comic over and over again, and I don't know. I don't know exactly what to do about that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For me, crowd work is for when nothing else is working, and you go, okay, fuck it.
Yeah, let's talk.
Let's break this down.
Let's do what you guys.
Let's find out why you guys suck.
Yeah. And there are, again, a lot of times I rag on it because I'm not good at it, but because, like you said, Ian Bagg, I know there's a bunch of, sometimes there's comics, which is interesting, where they'll go into the crowd and then they'll get aggressive. And I'm like, in the back of the room, like, what are you doing?
It's because it's not working. Right? Yeah.
And then they get like aggressive, but then the audience will be on the side of the comic.
Right.
And I'm like, what is and again, it has to do with perspective and like which comic is doing it, because like if I get up there and get aggressive, people are like, oh, you are the problem.
Right.
Like, you're the patriarchy, you are the problem. But there's certain comics that can get up there and do it, and people are like, yeah, fuck that lady. And I'm like, what is happening? How did you do that?
I act like I'm above it, but I've done that too. And it's gone wrong. I attacked a woman at a holiday party where they all knew each other.
Oh,
Such
really?
a rookie move. Because she answered the phone like right in the showroom.
Yeah, buried.
And I went after her, and then I didn't get a laugh for the rest of the show. Because that's like Susan from reception.
Yeah.
You just fucking attacked Susan.
Yeah, that's...
You know, like that was dumb. And then Al Madrigal, I was open for Al Madrigal. He got up afterwards. He's like, Matt is selling CDs after the show in case you want to take that magic home.
Yeah, I've
was I a dick? I think I called the woman the C word. Like,
did
I was
you?
out of my mind.
Tom has a similar story. When he was in Canada one time.
Yeah.
He talks about it a lot. It was like his worst bomb.
Yeah, the Winnipeg bombing. Tom Segura we're talking about.
Yeah, he same kind of thing though. It was a big group of people, and he went after one person, and they were like, absolutely not.
Yes.
And the show was over.
Yeah.
And I've learned. Again, it's a learned behavior, but I have had so many bad experiences with crowd work. One, because as a storytelling comic, I'm not very good. And it's something I need to get better at, and that comes through hard work. But I'm not very like one-liner witty. Like
Sure.
I'm very much like, oh, this experience happened, and I think this is funny because of the dynamic.
Right.
But I'm not very good at like I have a buddy of mine, Will Blaylock, huge shout out, hilarious comic in Jacksonville. He just off the top, like he's a roast guy, like he can bury anyone.
Yeah.
And I remember a few times I had tried it and it had gone horribly wrong. So now I just don't do it.
Yeah, well, there's a difference between crowd work and reprimanding the audience.
That's true too.
And
That's
this comes down to
true.
what we were talking about before with the control freak shit.
Yeah.
I used to, and I'm still the type of person, like if I'm at the movies and someone's talking and I can hear them, I go nuts.
Yeah.
I go absolutely
That was
nuts.
your Was I a Dick a couple
That was
weeks
my
ago.
Was I a Dick. And so I would feel like I would have to tell people to shut up. And I did it so many times and it got me in so much trouble. I just said to myself, well, let them be the asshole.
Yeah.
Let them be the people that are ruining the show. Let the club deal with it.
Yeah,
Let
that's
the
true.
audience deal with it. It's not my responsibility.
That's kind of the way that I've started to approach it now too, because it's like if I say something, by the time I'm saying something, I'm already past the point of rage.
Yeah.
That it's just going to come off negative.
Right.
And sometimes it has worked. Every once in a blue moon, it'll work where it's like an older dude and like his like white guy in his like 60s who thinks like he's above everything and doesn't even know why he's at the fucking show.
Yeah.
And if you reprimand them, normally everyone kind of gets behind you. And especially like, and I've talked to you about this before, but like sometimes like if it's a bro-y dude,
Yeah.
I'll be like, do you not hear? Like, I'm talking about getting arrested 8 times. Like,
Yeah.
do you really want to interrupt me again?
Right.
Like, and then it works because everyone's like, oh, it's bro versus bro.
Yeah.
But like, I've seen
Challenge.
Yeah. Finish him. But that's the only time I feel comfortable going after someone, whether it's reprimanding or like just going into the crowd. Any other time,
Yeah.
I stay as far. Like if it's women like
Yeah.
talking or like looking for their credit card or being loud.
You do not want to fuck with white women.
I don't
over
even
30.
I don't even touch it because
Yeah.
it's like I'm not gonna. And it's also one of those things too. Being raised around women, like I almost have this like weird because some people are like so sick of entitled women, white women at shows.
But that doesn't matter because the audience can only help you so much.
Yeah.
If that woman's coming after you and asking for the fucking manager or
Yeah.
whatever, I want to talk to the host.
Yeah,
You know?
I let it go. I'm just like,
Yeah.
she's probably looking for a card or something. Like I've been at shows before where, like at the when I went to go see Chappelle at the Stand, it happened where there was a table right in the front, and they were obviously important people because they were right in the front at
Yeah.
Chappelle's show at the
Right.
Stand, and it's very intimate, and they just wouldn't stop talking during the openers because
Yeah.
they don't
care. They put no
yeah.
value on it. They just don't even consider them real people.
Exactly. And it got to the point where as a crowd, and these were important, like I couldn't pick them out of a lineup, but you knew they were important people.
If they're on the show, they've done something right.
Yeah. And
Oh, you're talking about the people
no,
in
the people in the audience.
Yeah.
And obviously they're comics, the people on the show are comics working with Chappelle. So they're all killers. They're
Yeah.
hilarious.
Right.
And these people just wouldn't stop talking. And I like gave them a look. The table next to him gave them and just didn't give a shit.
You know, it's so funny. Jeremy Piven does comedy now because I did a show at the store one time and I went up after Brian Callen. Brian Callen worked with Jeremy Piven on Entourage,
Yeah.
and that's why he was there. And as soon as I got on stage, Jeremy Piven stands up and starts talking to his table, like addressing his table, like, so where you guys want to go now? So what's going on? What are you in the mood for?
Really?
You know what I mean? Like just talking straight through my fucking...
Like you weren't even, like you didn't even exist.
like I wasn't even on stage.
That
Do you know what I
blows my
mean?
mind. I don't understand that idea. Like that's a different level of
Yeah.
entitlement.
Right.
And I just don't get it with audiences where it's
Uh-huh.
like, you see me up here with like you paid money to
Well,
come
this was
here.
different.
Like,
This fucker didn't pay money, probably.
Yeah, probably.
And didn't give a fuck. And I just had to deal with it. I didn't see my in as far as taking on Jeremy Piven, height of Entourage. Because I'm not an insult comic.
yeah, you can't.
Do you know what I mean? And I don't know. What am I going to make fun of his hairline? I got the same thing.
Yeah. Nice
So I
$30,000 jacket, asshole.
And there's also like, at that time, like I am still trying to fucking make it in this business.
Yeah.
Am I really going to take on, like everybody was singing his praises at that time.
That is something
You know what I mean?
tried to do on my
And would the
podcast.
audience really take my side?
Exactly, because he's Ari Gold, man. That's something.
Like, what if you went after Margot Robbie in the audience? Everybody would be like, fuck you, unknown comedian.
We
I'm
love
sorry.
her.
Yeah.
But that's something I had tried to do because I have all these stories from working in like nicer steakhouses for the last 10
Yeah.
years. I have all these stories about athletes and celebrities and all these people who have come in and I've waited on. And whether they're dicks or whether they're nice or whatever. And normally, like for the nice ones, like I say it all the time, Henry Winkler, Jim Parsons, two of the nicest people in the world. And they're genuinely nice gentlemen.
Yeah.
And I've also waited on people who are utter and complete dickheads.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's athletes because they've
Yeah.
been coddled their entire lives.
Right.
And I thought about doing like a Patreon bonus thing for Ex Drinking Buddy
Yeah.
about that.
Right.
And it's exactly what you're saying. I had another comic come up to me and they go, "That's hilarious, but you can't do that
You got to be careful.
because you'll burn so many bridges.
Right.
You don't know who's friends with who." And,
Yeah, yeah,
and I know
yeah.
sometimes I stick my foot in my mouth when I'm talking to other comics. I'm like, "You believe this asshole?" And then
Right.
they're like, "You can't.
Yeah.
Like, that's my friend. You can't say that."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I ended up not doing it, but it's you're exactly right. It's this weird thing where it's like, do I really want to light all these bridges on fire just for some
Yeah.
content?
Yeah, and it only gets worse in a way. Like, if you do become successful, and now it's like a public feud.
Yeah.
The internet, like, I don't know if you noticed, but like the headlines on regular news stations are like, "Trolls attack Christina Applegate
Yeah.
for being overweight.
Yeah.
She snaps back." That's fucking news.
Selena Gomez going after everyone who didn't like her
That's
Golden
nu-
Globes dress.
That's news.
Yeah.
And it also pitches it like these trolls are valid sources of thought.
That's the other thing.
Oh, two sides. No, there's no two sides. There's somebody that's worked their ass off and is brave enough to show up with a little fucking extra weight on them.
Yeah.
And there's people who are hiding and work at the fucking post office, no offense, who are like fucking going after these people.
The fact that everyone has a voice now is something that's been incredibly bothersome to me.
Yeah.
Remember back when if you wanted to say something or if you felt you had something of value to discuss with the world,
Yeah.
you had to try.
You had to establish yourself as someone worth listening to.
Exactly. You had to find whether it's open mics or the poetry sessions,
Right.
or you had to find some way to get your voice out there. And now everyone has a voice,
Yeah.
and you don't even have. And I know it because I have started three different podcasts, so I know how easy it is to get
Yeah.
your voice out to the masses.
Yeah.
And it's so weird because I don't have an agent, I don't have a manager, but I can watch myself on my big TV in my living room.
Right.
Like,
But you know what's so interesting is like you can try and create and try and create. But then for just even if it's just for this small moment, this person is making the news by attacking somebody.
yeah.
Like that negativity. Like I really feel like Star Wars is kind of better than most religions in a way because it establishes that there's like the good side of the Force,
Mm-hmm.
which is valid and works, but there's also the dark side of the Force, which fucking works.
Yeah.
Like they never established that like Satan. They kind of do. There's so much negativity on Satan, as there should be, but he's like they really skip over the part where like it works.
Yeah.
You can really get ahead in life.
They talk about it in Star Wars how the dark side is more powerful for
Right.
you personally
Right.
than the light side ever is.
Right.
The light side is more the unity of everything
Sure.
together.
Right.
The dark side is like, no, if you personally want to get ahead,
Yeah.
dark side all day, baby.
Right. So that's interesting. So those trolls, like, it's working.
Yeah.
They're just
They're
sitting
getting
around.
attention.
They're ready to fucking attack people. And some days they have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank God most of it doesn't translate into monetary success for
Yeah,
these fucking
'cause that would
wastes
be-
of fucking life. And then you run into them at the barbecue and they're all nice and shit. They're
Yeah.
like nice people with like 3 kids
Well,
who go to church every Sunday.
You've talked about it before, meeting people after shows. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you blocked me, dude.
Yeah, I'm like-
I came out to see you. Like, we love you.
I'm like, really? Huh? But to be fair, I block anybody.
Well, and then you unblock them, and they'll be like, "Oh, stupid fucking shirt, Matt." And you go, "This is why you got blocked, man."
Blocked his ass right again. Scorpion and the Frog is one of the best stories. You know that one?
Oh yeah,
So for those that don't know, I'll tell you the short version. I don't know. The scorpion convinces the frog. He says, take me across the pond,
river,
right?
Across the river, yeah.
Across the river. And the frog goes, dude, you're a scorpion. You're going to sting me. He's like, yeah, no, I'm going to be cool. Because why would I sting you? Because I need a ride across the river. Takes him across the river and stings his ass. He'd be like, you said you weren't going to. He's like, I'm a scorpion. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I think that's right on.
No, absolutely. It's so bizarre when you give people other opportunities and then they disappoint you.
Yeah.
You're like, this is why.
On the other hand, I think you should, it depends on how important it is.
That's true.
Don't depend on somebody when it's important. Like my boy Kevin Shea is a scorpion.
Yeah.
Like I let him stay at, like he doesn't always, but he's 50-50. He comes through sometimes, he doesn't other times. And so I let him stay at my apartment when he broke up with his girlfriend because I was on the road so much. I'm like, but there's a catch. You got to pick me up from John Wayne Airport, which is down in Orange County, which is like 30, 40 miles away.
Yeah.
And I called him the day before. I'm like, you picking me up, right? And he goes, yeah. And then when I landed, I'm like, where are you? He goes, oh, dude, you got to remind me. So I guess I got to like remind him.
The scorpion stung you, man.
I go, dude, you just cost me $90. And then he did that bullshit that was like, well, what did you take? Like, they want to like investigate like your bad choice.
Yeah.
My bad choice was asking you to pick me up.
Well, and I understand, and the audience listening might realize this. I understand how hypocritical it is as a recovering alcoholic who's made a lot of mistakes to be like, fucking giving people another chance. That's so stupid.
Right.
But I think at the end of the day, and this ties in nicely to what the whole theme of the podcast is, at the end of the day, I think people, you can tell, especially us, because we're very empathetic, you can tell if someone is a good person who just happened to do some shitty things.
Yes.
Or if someone's just genuinely a shitty person.
Right.
And I think that's why I got so many other chances, was because people were like, we know Brennan's a good person.
Right.
It's just, he gets drunk and does dumb shit.
Yeah. And you also delivered sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
And then those times became more frequent.
Yep.
And
then I got sober and everyone's like, thank God. I used to.
Thank God.
I remember when I had a short stint of sobriety, I had begged this, so I worked for Outback forever. And I remember I moved and there was an Outback and I asked them to hire me and they said, oh, we'll call your old store. And this is when I was drinking and I had burned so many bridges. But at the time I just was taking a break from drinking.
Yeah.
And I remember they brought me in for an interview and I was like, that's weird. I've worked for this company for like 8 years.
Yeah.
And they brought me in for an interview because they go, we talked to your old store.
Right.
And we heard they said, you're a great server. You're great with your tables, but you have a severe drinking problem.
Right.
And I remember I convinced them to hire me. And for the first month, I was on it.
You were Brennan. You were Brennan's motherfucking test.
And I remember I used to joke with people. I'd be like, this is Randy Moss going to the Patriots. Like everyone thought his career was done and he had gotten in too much trouble and he could never come back. And then
blooming onion to your table.
There we go. And I remember, and then I fell off the rails and everything went to shit. But I remember thinking like, you guys, by investing in me and being like, we'll give you a shot, best investment of your life.
Right.
I'm the best server here.
Right.
By a mile.
Which you were, right?
Yeah. And so, and they were like, thank God we took a chance on this guy.
Right, yeah.
And then I burn it all to the ground. They go, oh, that's what they were talking about.
Well, that's all the time we have, I think.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out with us at The Power of How. And rate and review us and subscribe to the podcast.
Absolutely.
And like us and say nice things.
Check us out on social media at The Power of How Podcast, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube channel. We'll put clips up, the whole deal.
And that's it. Keep your head up.
Thanks for listening to The Power of How. Music by Daniel Torrado. Artwork by Nelson Diaz. Follow us on all the social medias at The Power of How Podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe. And check us out at patreon.com/The Power of How Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, keep us in business, send us a little money. All right, thanks for listening. Catch you next week.